Hey, my name is James Britt. I'm going to talk a bit about what I call black boxing with Ruby. A little bit of background about myself. I run some Ruby sites. Probably most notably, I run ruby-doc.org, and I've been writing Ruby code since about 2000, 2001, and I've written a number of Ruby articles and parts of books and so on like that. Basic idea of what I want to talk about, it's sort of an overview, recounting some experiences I've had in trying to work with applications, primarily web applications, that aren't written in Ruby, don't necessarily expose the kind of API or interface that I want, and yet I want for my client code, say command line tools or some other application, I want a decent kind of Ruby API. So the definition here of black boxing is just interacting with some other app that doesn't have my particular interests in mind. Black box, again, for my purposes, is just some unknown entity that you may only know how it works from its outside behavior. You may not have any access to its internals and to all its guts or any opportunity to really hook into it. So I'll accept that this is, for our purposes, a good enough definition. So the story behind this is James needed some sort of project tracking tool. In another case, James wanted some kind of commenting system for a particular application, and in general, James liked a whole bunch of stuff that just wasn't written in Ruby. There's a lot of nice stuff that's out there. There's Track for project tracking that some people have mentioned. I know a lot of people use. There's WordPress for various things, which if you're doing blogging or certain kinds of presentation work and so on, is actually quite good. I like Amazon's EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud for various things. There are some Ruby things for it, but they're not quite as complete as I'd like. There's Cafe Press Shops. One of the sites I run is rubystuff.com, which is sort of a portal aggregator for a bunch of Cafe Press Shops. And all these cases are things I want to work with tools that were written from Ruby my end to things that weren't necessarily Ruby friendly on the other end. So one question that I think you might want to comes up when you talk to people about this is why not just build everything myself? Right? If I can't find a project tracking tool that has just the right API I want, I just build it. And the reason is because that's just insane. I know that many people, when they work on projects, half the fun is building the tools to help you build your main project, but it's a mouse hole. You can just chase that forever and spend more time building tools than building your actual project. And I've been there and done that, so I don't really want to keep after that all the time. Why not use a Ruby app? Well, truth is, there's not always a good selection available, right? I mean, people do talk about writing a Ruby substitute for Track. There are Ruby options, I think, that aspire perhaps to what WordPress offers, but I don't know if they're quite there. Even if they are, there's another aspect to this, which is just plain mind share. Even if you find an application written in the language of your choice, it's a question of when a bug is found, when there's a security problem, when there's a feature request, how many people are going to be out there to fix it, to patch it, to pitch in. So I'm pretty confident that if I'm using Track and there's a problem, they're just all these developers are going to jump on it and they're going to solve it. And the best part is I'm not going to be one of those developers having to jump on it and solve it. And that just leaves me free to focus on the things that I want to do. So what it really comes down to is when you need a particular tool, it's secondary to what you're mainly trying to accomplish or just has some particularly useful feature. Yes, it's nice when you can do everything in pure Ruby. The reality is that isn't always what's going to work best for you, and you needn't get blinded by this kind of language fundamentalism. Okay, because basically the P languages are not the work of Satan, right? But don't let that out of this room, okay? I'll deny it if you ever pass it around that I said that. All right? Another thing behind all this, big motivation just for me personally, is there's a lot of me when I go off to do something, it's hey, I wonder if, you could take this and hook it up with that and spin it around that way and so on. I mean, anybody who had a chemistry kit growing up, I think, knows, like, what happens when you mix the blue stuff with the red stuff and put it over a fire. There's a lot of that thinking that goes on. Same thing with mechanical devices. Oddly enough, when I grew up, I was known as the one who always broke stuff, even though I was also the one who always fixed stuff. But, I view a lot of what I've been doing when I have a chance just experimenting with certain ideas. What I found when you do things like that, you end up in odd development territory and wind up learning or doing things that you would not have considered doing were you to take perhaps, well, the right path, perhaps, or the obvious path. Okay? So keep that in mind when you go through this, all right? So I think for most speakers, when they give a presentation, this is what they want from the audience, right? This is what it may be, all right? That's fine. This, however, is the path to enlightenment, so I'm good with that. So, start off with Track. Track is an excellent project tracking tool. You can argue with me afterwards. I'm sure there are alternatives. I'm quite happy with it. It does basically what I want. It gets out of the way, has nice features. It lets me look at my SVN repo, has a wiki, I can set permissions. It works. It does what I want, okay? But there's way too much mousing for many things. If you've ever tried to add a ticket or so on to Track, you have to open up a browser and click on stuff and go through. And it's fine for the one-off things. It's particularly useful if you open up your Track repo, your Track site to clients and give them an opportunity to put things in. But it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And just in general, web pages are poor data entry tools. So I asked myself, hey, I wonder if I could use Track from the command line. And the situation really was this. I find myself working on projects, and I'm coding away, and I come into something that I see as a problem. I don't want to fix it right away, because it's not really the problem that I'm facing right now. Perhaps I noticed that the CSS alignment on a certain page is just wrong. I got to make a note of it. I don't want to do it in, say, some temporary notes file, and then later on have to remember to go put it up on Track. What I wanted, while I'm at the command line, was just type it out, and boom, have it magically appear at Track. So that was real scratch the itch practical thing. I needed to be able to do something so I wouldn't break the flow of my work. And, the answer now is yes, you can use Trackula. This is an application library I've written to interact with Track primarily from the command line, primarily through rake tasks. And let me see if I actually get this working. I did try to do some screen capturing stuff because I don't like live demos. Me and live demos have a really bad history. So I'll see if I can get this to perform well to kind of give you what it's like. You can make that out. Basically, you just type as a rake task, Track:tickets. It goes up to the server, and it pulls back a list of all the open tickets. That was something I just wanted. At any given time when I was working on something, I wanted to be able to go and see what was open and what was going on. Oops. If I find the desktop now. Likewise, I want to be able to add tickets from the command line through a series of prompts. Here's another high-tech audio-visual presentation. Similar thing, as a rake task, you can type Track:ticket, and how fast this goes. It prompts you for a bunch of information. There's some reasonable defaults I put in there. This is practically unreadable. You'll have to take my word for it that that's actually what's going on. Imagine, if you will, that this thing is graciously asking you what milestone does it belong to, what's the component type, is it a task, is it a defect, and you'll just post it back up there. Because that's, in fact, exactly what it does.